So hello and welcome to today's video. So one of Buddy's biggest flaws that many people can agree on is just how poorly Rockstar handled a large majority of its main cast. All the Clique leaders, Gary, Pete, they just never ever appear at all once the story ends. Despite the fact at one point they were all clearly planned to appear in Freemode, because if you mod them in, like on PC or Android or whatever, you'll find that each and every single one of them have the same level of depth and personality as they do with pretty much every other student. Alongside the fact you'll find that most of them have a different fighting style to the one they use in their boss fights. So many players have raised the question of why did Rockstar remove all of these characters from Freemode entirely? Well, the broad answer is it's likely a design choice given how much it would really conflict with the main story, as it could ruin a sense of tension, or just make no sense whatsoever. For example, let's talk about Gary for a second actually, because I think Gary's probably a fantastic example of this. So as the main antagonist, it makes no sense for Gary to appear in Freemode for a variety of different reasons. One of these of course is a major story plot hole. Because after Gary's betrayal, he's taunting Jimmy, threatening him after the Russell fight, but if he was in Freemode, straight after chapter 2 begins, you can find Gary, beat him up, and it really takes away much of the tension from Final Showdown, or even after he sets Jimmy up in the eggs. Like, why bother with the rest of the story with Gary working behind the scenes if Jimmy can just deal with him 2 minutes later? Another one of course is Pete. Because Pete's a non-click, his NPC behaviour would be very, very inconsistent in the story versus his behaviour in Freemode. Like when everybody turns on Jimmy, Pete stays as a friend to him. But if he's modded into Freemode, which you can do, he's hostile and rude to Jimmy, which makes it very out of character for him. Plus it also conflicts with the character we know of in the cutscenes. Like in the cutscenes he's very shy, he's timid, he's lonely, and he does see Jimmy as his friend. Likewise, Gary does suffer from the same issue Pete does. Because Gary's a non-click, he'd be friendly to Jimmy after his betrayal, which makes no sense at all if he's backstabbed Jimmy and threatening to take over the school, and yet straight after chapter 2 begins, why is he greeting Jimmy with a smile on his face and just talking to him like nothing ever happened? Now for characters like Ted, the entire build up to chapter 4 is Jimmy wanting to humiliate Ted publicly for bullying Pete and showing disrespect to Jimmy. Yet if Jimmy could just find Ted after that scene and beat him up there and then, it takes away a massive chunk of chapter 4's plotline of Jimmy collaborating with the nerds to get revenge, and would make the big game lose most of its payoff. Now in fairness, I think the one that makes the least amount of sense is Zoe Taylor. Well, for her tiny appearance at least, because in canon she's Jimmy's friend and love interest. But if she's modded to be a Tony in Freemode, she will be hostile to him, which does make a lot of sense before Jimmy meets her properly, but not after they get on good terms. But I think Edgar Munson is probably the finest example of this, because Edgar's exclusion from Freemode makes a hell of a lot of sense when you look at the original storyline for chapter 5. Because originally, after the gym's burning, Jimmy would chase Gurney down, who would lead him down to the Tony's hideout in the power plant. This is where Jimmy would learn who Edgar Munson is and what he's responsible for. That's when he goes back to the academy and tells Pete about his plan to bust in there and beat the crap out of him. Edgar's role in the story was, and I guess still is in the final version, the guy who worked in the shadows. This mysterious person who Jimmy doesn't even know, and would have given him a sense of mystery. Who is this Edgar? Why is he doing this to Jimmy in the academy? Having him in Freemode would have really ruined that surprise if it's revealed the person who ordered the arson of the gym and sabotaging deliveries and all that other illegal stuff turned out to be this one NPC you've probably seen 100 times by now. Although to be fair, if you actually do pay attention to the Buddy story, you'll learn that Jimmy doesn't even know who Edgar is, he just randomly name drops him in busting in, nor does he know where the Tony's hideout is, he just suddenly knows somehow. Anyway, one exception to this of course is Russell, because Russell always appears in Freemode from the get-go. Now this is likely because of how much of an intimidating figure he is to newer players, because you get introduced to Russell very early on, and it sets him up as an antagonist. He's twice the size of Jimmy, built like a rock, and extremely aggressive. In pretty much all of his early appearances, he's already threatened Jimmy, and newer players can, will, and do struggle against someone like Russell. I would argue that leaving Russell in Freemode gives him a more menacing characteristic, because if you try fighting him when you're a brand new player, you'll learn to regret it very quickly, and learn that maybe running off when you see him is a good idea, which in turn makes Gary's betrayal more menacing when he essentially locks you in the hole with him. Alternatively, unlike pretty much everybody else in the game, Russell does stay on Jimmy's good side for pretty much the rest of the game, even when everybody hates him, which doesn't really conflict with anything else that happens in the story, Like Johnny Vincent for example, he is friendly with Jimmy in the beginning of chapter 3, but then obviously the stuff with Lola happens and it kind of deteriorates, and you can tell Jimmy and Darby don't get along at all. So yeah, that's why I think pretty much most of the main cast of Buddy do not appear at all in Freemode. So thank you for watching today's video. If you liked it, leave a like and subscribe for more Buddy based content or reviews of other Rockstar games. Thank you for watching and have a great day.